Mike so hot. You're live.
Hello, everyone. I would like to welcome everybody to the Town of Auburn Economic Development Committee. I'd like to call the meeting to order on January 15th, 2026 at 6 p.m.
Madam Chair, if I may, the first item of business we have on the agenda is listed as committee reorganization. At the last meeting, we had discussed specifically talking about having someone do the minutes, so I wanted to add that for discussion. I guess, is there a volunteer?
So it's labeled as the clerk of the committee,
I
I believe. Is there an official, like, other than taking minutes, is there anything else that?
Well, there's a hat you have to get.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, there is, okay.
Special robe.
Yeah, no, to my understanding, through the chair, yeah, it's within the committee to designate somebody to do that.
Who did the last round of minutes? Because they were amazing.
I did. Paid that due for a year.
Have you done it for a year already?
Do you mean the minutes that were submitted? Because these were from Paul wrote
Yeah,
these
the ones that were.
The ones for December.
We just looked at.
Oh,
Yeah.
excellent.
So we nominate.
I have one question. Can the meeting be taped? Because if it could be, I would then step up. I just have a difficult time
Yeah.
sometimes, trying to pay attention and participate at the same time.
That's always my
So
fault.
I would be willing to step up and do it for a period of time in an effort that I'll have a chance to watch the meeting so I can capture things I might miss.
Yeah, through the chair, I mean, absolutely, that's how I did the minutes, actually. I had my own personal notes for the meeting, but actually I went back to the video recording, and the minutes you have for consideration later, that's the method I used.
Sure, I can, if someone wants to nominate me, I won't refuse.
I will make a formal motion to nominate
Patrick.
Patrick Jones.
Patrick Jones as the clerk for the Economic Development Committee. All in favor?
I have a question. Order. Can the chair make a motion?
She can. I think it's probably the safest way to approach it is she can ask for a motion.
Right, okay.
That's probably the.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Boy Scout me's coming out.
You're on some boards. Yes.
Let's follow Robert's rules, be careful.
Okay,
Yeah.
in that case, I make a motion to nominate Patrick Jones for clerk.
I second that.
I don't think you can do that
No.
either.
Oh, I can't second that. Oh, geez, I need.
See all the power
You
you
were
have?
supposed to bring me that
But you can
book.
You have all the power and none.
Oh, the power of none.
I'll second
Okay.
it.
Okay. All right.
All in favor?
Yeah, we don't need a roll.
There you go.
I'm going to nominate Mike to be parliamentarian.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. The next item on the agenda is a ongoing discussion about proposal for an establishment of an Economic Development Industrial Corporation, EDIC, in Auburn, continuing the conversation we had with Ms. Eric Richards at the last meeting.
So I see you've done additional research, and it seems that we're not qualified to participate in that program due to our unemployment levels. It states unemployment has to be at least 6% for the last 2 years. Currently, Auburn is around 4.5% unemployment. Don't know if anybody else had any other comments?
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing, Paul, the information that you found, and it lined up with some of my own research I did just through basic Google searches of publicly available information about definitions of what an EDIC is, Economic Development and Industrial Corporation, and yeah, right, like thankfully Auburn's unemployment rate is too low, so that was the first qualifier. it also, I thought it was interesting that you mentioned that we would need to have a specific call out in our economic development plan for the town. And currently, the plan that was created back in 2017 doesn't make any designations. So there's multiple barriers to this. So it seems like we can maybe just move past the proposal at this time. I did also want to call out that you also looked into and followed up on the Camp Gleason conversation, which was also sort of part and parcel of the proposal that was presented. And I appreciated that you highlighted that, right, commercial and retail uses are not allowed in the zoning district that for Camp Gleason. And right now there's actually only a microwave and sink on site, so things like using it for commercial cooking just are not even possible. I understood that it was sort of a vision for it, but that, you know, obviously money ran out, so the full kitchen was not installed. And then, yeah, plus there would be permitting issues and things, but I thank you for all of that information. It makes the discussion kind of easy about the EDIC at least.
If I could, Madam Chair, if I could just jump in on that. So just again, I wasn't around a couple
Yeah.
years ago when they first started having the conversations about Gleason. Apparently, an early iteration of the concept for the redo of it did have a more robust commercial kitchen.
Right.
But through the design process or the permitting building process, again, before my time that I got here, those were eliminated from the final version. Could they be reinstalled? Absolutely, but as with everything, would be money. And also, yeah, I'll just note for the record that although the zoning doesn't currently allow it, zoning could be changed at a future time, should appropriate use be determined. But again, with regards to the specific model, at this stage, it does not seem we meet the criteria. Although I would, conversation for another time, I would suggest at some point, the town does need to revisit its economic development plan. It was last done in 2017, and that was certainly pre-COVID, a lot of different circumstances on the ground now. And during that time, I think it'd be very appropriate to talk about are there specific areas we want to highlight, or specific development models we might want to pursue further. And I included in your packets as well this sort of a bit of a primer on the state's different types of redevelopment models as redevelopment authorities, those are commonly known one, community development entities, and the like. So those are all things on the table that other communities have employed, but just in the specific matter of an EDIC, like I said, fortunately, unfortunately, right, due to the numbers, we don't meet that standard.
I think it was also important to note that in some of the information you provided also pointed out some of the practical obstacles, even if it weren't within an EDIC framework, whether it be the facilities not having the equipment, but also not being properly equipped to handle the kind of liability and whether it be health standards or insurance coverages or even potentially physical capabilities of the existing property that was mentioned. It's certainly not only one possibility, and I understand that in the spirit it was offered by the person making the proposal as a broader picture to try to figure out these kinds of obstacles. It would also just seem that the investment that would be necessary would really likely require a municipal and community effort with a business partnership of some sort to make something of that scale and potential occur. So I think it's a much more complicated logistical scenario than just is it under EDIC or what have you.
I think, I think with everything on the table that we've talked about, that there are some valuable points here. But some of the things that I saw that were similar to what all of you are saying, but in a different format, I know just the structure of the way we are as a town, as a community, if we forget what the law says or that we're not zoned that way. I think just the way the structure of the town is, one of the things that we fall into a dilemma with is just getting volunteers in general.
Sure.
And even though I didn't really pick up on the correlation between the unemployment and the EDIC, except that it occurred to me in thinking that through that we'd have to take on employees And if not, whether they were volunteers or employees, because to me, I would say, what does the unemployment rate have to do with having an EDIC if we're strictly going to be using it for small business? And the businesses are already formed, and we're giving people another avenue in trying to. So I think that the interest, where I sit, I said, there's a lot of great concept and ideas here, because I sit on other boards and I see other challenges. And I say, for instance, we're going to talk about the tax rate in a few minutes because it's on our agenda. And not to jump too far ahead, but as an example, we've got external forces at our, that are going to happen that we're going to have to discuss. Like, the state right now doesn't allow certain things. So, those are going to be things that you have to think about, whether you're the selectmen or other people and you're trying to set a tax rate. Well, the same thing sort of holds true in this sort of scenario, in that we've got a great concept and we've got an alternative way to create revenue. So I don't know that I would say that the whole idea maybe doesn't have some components of it that we can't necessarily utilize or take advantage of. However, and I concur that, the project at Gleason was several years, and, it got to the point where we were going to town meeting on subsequent occasions asking for more money and paring it down. So I would think it would be a huge capital investment to then even try to bring it to the next level. And do we have the capital investment? Do we have the support for the capital investment? And then never mind having that, but what's it going to take to maintain that level, especially when people start going in. Like, we have a little bit of, I think we have a yoga group up there now, and we plan on having town meetings. That's very minimal traffic, that's small usage. It was just meant for someone to heat up something light if they were going to have a meeting up there. It was never intended. At some point that was sort of put down, not to repeat things that people are saying. So in some ways, my whole sense was to come at it from the immediate proposal. I thought was, seemed to get pared down a lot, but I don't want to lose sight of the actual proposal and what ideas it brings to bring additional revenue into Auburn, because, we are faced with being the type of municipality that we are. We're very limited as to how we can raise revenues.
I'm sure if I could jump in. The two things, just for the boards, to my understanding, again, I think folks know that we lost our town planner at the end of December, so guess who gets to be the town planner while we look for a new town planner? So anyway, so I'm doing some double duty, so I apologize I don't have some of these questions fully answered, but my understanding, Patrick asked a question about unemployment. My understanding is when this was conceived of at the state level, it was predominantly communities that were sort of legacy industrial communities that had lost a lot of businesses and had assemblies of land that needed to happen. And so that, I think that's why the unemployment was part of that, to show if somebody had unemployment, that meant it had more need for additional economic development tools. I don't know if that fully answers your question, but
It helps.
that was the tie-in.
Sure.
And then regarding your other point, Patrick, I 100% agree. I'm speaking in my role now as the Economic Development Director. I am in the process, again, it's going to be a little bit slower now, but I do believe as well, we need to look at all of our resources in town, all our municipal attributes, whether it be our existing buildings, the town has a fair amount of tax title property. Unfortunately, it's not large industrial parcels that we could do something really creative with, but that's another opportunity. Can we put small businesses in there? Can we sell those lots for development? Some combination of the above. I want to be looking at all those. So I agree, while the specific model of the EDIC in this instance doesn't fit, I think we should look at creative ways for the town to grow and develop that way. So I think that's, I just wanted to second that point. And part of my role is to help support this committee as you begin to have those discussions of how we want to look at that.
Any further comments?
I would just say it seemed to me, looking at what you had sent out, Paul, about the different kind of categories other than an EDIC that it could fall under, it seemed to me like private nonprofit was maybe the only way or best way forward, I guess. without spending a ton of time, you know, looking at the other ones, but, because in general, I did think you know, I liked the idea in general. It's unfortunate that the EDIC, you know, isn't really a viable option, but, you know, I think there was in that, what you had sent to us, Paul, I think the private nonprofit, among the other things, might have been a good option for someone to look into.
Yeah, well, to that point, if I may, again, it's something I didn't have a chance to dive into it, like I said, I'll stop apologizing. But Plymouth was brought up as an example at the last meeting. I'm not sure if Mr. Richards brought it up or someone else, but Plymouth has that model. It's, I think it's called, I have some print of it, but anyway, it is a 501c3, and it wasn't a chamber of commerce. It was a 501c3 that was it's like Plymouth Biz, or you know, something like
Yeah.
that. But it had membership from the town, like the town manager was on it, and some other town people, members of other boards. Like there was a member from each, from like the select board, planning board, some other committees, and then some at-large business people. So I want to say there was like 11 people on that committee. So it's definitely robust, and that's something. Yeah, that, I mean, as soon as that model,
Yep.
that model's out there. That's for
Right,
sure.
Right.
It seemed though they're also we're a bit focused more on tourism.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean,
being
those
Plymouth,
towns,
I guess.
those towns that were eligible for it were all, it was majority Cape Cod towns, you know, so seasonal workers that, you know.
Yeah, there you go.
But,
Yeah, that's the thing. 'Cause that's the other thing that affects people. Like, oh, Provincetown has a low unemployment rate or a high unemployment rate.
Right.
Yeah, because a lot of the work is seasonal,
It's
and a lot of
in the
people,
summer,
you know, summer on the Cape and then leave.
Yeah, one of the examples I read to your question around the unemployment was because of such high seasonal unemployment, because all of the businesses closed, it was an effort to repurpose an industrial lot that had been sitting vacant to attract full-time business to the area to replace some of the job losses every season. So it was,
I just
yeah.
take issue with some of those types of policies because that they don't take into effect is it's quantifying a number, but they're not qualifying skill sets and talent and other attributes that go with these people that aren't working. You know, so you can't necessarily put a circle in a square peg, you know? So it can become, even though you've got the number to support it with unemployment, I do find some flaws in the whole process just because they have to come up with a policy. So that's why I say sometimes it's hard. I don't let stuff like that stop me if I'm trying to create, because there's got to be a workaround. So, but yeah, but no, you just
that was the point, was like the EDIC would then reframe that property for a purpose that fit the
Sure.
need, you know, to
Yeah.
match
No, I follow
to
you.
that. Yeah, so
Right.
that was the idea. It was interesting reading about some of the examples, because you're right, I wouldn't think of some of those towns as having, you know, they seem like wealthy areas, but it's a seasonal.
But
wealth.
the interesting thing is some of that unemployment falls on really the workers, the people, even though they are affluent or they have a quantity of very wealthy people, those aren't the people that are seeking the employment to keep working. That's,
Right.
those people aren't the unemployed people that are trying to fill in.
Right. So repurposing industrial lots with businesses that would the folks
Sure.
who live in the town who need the employment would qualify. I think that was the general idea, to really customize it for the town's needs. So, yeah.
Gotcha.
So where the committee was asked to do some research and weigh in on this from the Board of Selectmen, do we need to formally send something back through with our discussion and recommendation as it relates to that proposal right now? Or what's the,
I feel like that was the charge. We weren't given a deadline specifically.
yeah,
But we could say, you know, I mean, I'm not going to put words in the committee's mouth, but, you know, something to the effect of, we looked into the issue and our research has shown that this particular model doesn't work for Auburn, you know.
Based on the criteria.
Based on the criteria that the
that we
state issued.
discussed, right.
And there, you know, there's some other things worthy of future study to see what might be a good fit for Auburn
Sure.
going forward, something like that. I think a paragraph or something to that effect, I think that's what or, you know,
Is that correspondent have to be provided by yourself in the role that you're in, or does it have to come from a committee member?
you know, this is our first go-around with this. I'd be certainly happy to help draft something if that was, you know, if someone, you know, to help the committee. Or we could sort of, you know, like you said, task someone with it now. And
that's something I'd be happy to put together the draft and send it your way for a review, and then we
Okay.
could submit it
Maybe
through.
it could come through Mary, come from Mary.
Yeah,
I think
actually,
the
the chair probably.
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
It should come from the chair on behalf of the committee.
Okay.
But I'm happy to assist anyone if there's language or if we want a second set of eyes on something.
So can I make a motion then, that as a committee, we put together a statement?
I would, before you make the motion, because I want this to be included in the motion, I would think you would want to word it in a way that completely encapsulates Camp Gleason and how the two don't fit. Because I think if you don't show that, then it sort of dismisses the whole plan. And I think on behalf of the person who submitted it, to keep it somewhat percolating and alive, that we say that, we somehow extract that it could be utilized, or parts of it, could be considered, so that it doesn't just shut down the idea or put a narrow mind of view into the Board of Selectmen. I'm sort of, wish that they had sort of captured this in their own minds before they quickly delegated it to our board, and maybe had entertained it a little longer, and because I think it's a well thought out proposal. It's an opportunity to generate revenue for the town, and I think that we can't just be passing stuff along and dismissing it quickly without really vetting it. So I would make sure that in your response to the selectmen, I would add, that it's that at the moment Camp Gleason, because to your point, whether we use the Yankee Drummer or something else, if there are ways to make this come alive somehow in future economic development ideas, that we haven't quite completely squashed it in their eyes. So that's how I would communicate to them that the two don't fit. Just a suggestion.
Okay.
Because it was delivered with the intent of utilizing Camp Gleason.
I think so, but it was also as an example, as I understood this suggestion. So it was a concrete scenario that was presented, but not necessarily a limitation of the idea. So my perspective of the comment back would be specifically related to the question of the EDIC, the requirements, the lack of qualification for that, the fact that that as a mechanism would not work from our research would be something we'd report back. In addition to that, we can certainly acknowledge the value of the proposal in its spirit and encourage additional, based on what they may ask us to do next. I don't know how to word that, but I don't know if I'll focus specifically on Gleason in or out, because I thought Gleason was just primarily an example as opposed to the be all and end all of the proposal as I read it.
I took it as Gleason because that was the property that was available. But we've got a lot of empty property
Sure.
around the town.
Unfortunately, it's not all owned by the town.
Right.
No, I'm saying we have other, but we don't know what we're going to do with some of that stuff in the future either, do we?
No, of course not.
So I just, and to that point, I think I just want to figure out a way to word it that doesn't dismiss the effort.
For sure.
But I don't know that, well, yeah, so.
Okay. So let me make a motion that someone be appointed to write a letter, to draft a letter that acknowledges the proposal and its value, the specific possibilities that Gleason could provide in the future, that EDIC as a mechanism would likely not work based on our understanding and why.
Right.
And that we should be encouraging these types of thoughts and partnerships with the community to explore other ideas. We could submit that amongst ourselves for review and then submit it through the chair. That would be my motion.
Sure. Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Very nice.
Well motioned.
Thank you for volunteering.
Sure.
So we'll move on to the next agenda item, continued discussion on the tax factor criteria. Thank you for all of the information. You provided us a lot of information.
I'll apologize for
Yeah, I didn't get to it all, honestly,
Okay,
because of the
well,
timing of receiving it.
I did not print out the 40 pages of Worcester tax tables.
I did.
Although Patrick did. I do have, if someone wants to refer to it, I have a copy of our historical tax factors and rates going back to 1980.
I have it here.
You have it there.
Yeah.
And Patrick, do you have one? Do you want one?
I have one as
Okay,
well,
great.
sure.
I brought copies in case someone wanted some.
Do you know offhand what the average single-family home in Auburn is and what the average tax bill is for them?
No. No,
It was in
no,
the,
no.
it was in the selectmen's meeting that you shared with us.
Oh, well, okay.
So it was somewhere around
I didn't take
460
notes on it,
something
yeah.
thousand, rough my memory,
Okay.
the average assessed value, and I believe the average tax was 6,200 or so,
Right.
1,000
It was
or
around
less than the
6,200.
state average, if I
Yeah.
remember correctly.
Madam Chair, if I could, I'm just gonna applaud the board, just the second member now who's clearly done their homework of the things I sent them. So I much appreciate it. Sometimes you send these things out, you know.
You can listen to YouTube 2 times fast,
There you
so
go.
it might not be totally accurate, but it's a good time
Keep
Pro
saver.
reading.
tip, good pro tip. yeah.
Speed viewing.
Um, But in addition to if I could continue, Madam Chair, there as a starting point, there were some criteria, suggested criteria that I included in the memo that one of the select board members had proffered. They seem like worthy figures. I've been trying to research some other ones. As I note in my memo, I had some back and forth with the Worcester Chamber of Commerce after the holiday, or during the holiday season. As you know, the Auburn Chamber of Commerce is an affiliate of the Worcester Chamber, and knowing that the Worcester Chamber lobbied the Worcester City Council yearly on this matter, I asked our Auburn staffer, hey, what do they do? And she put me in touch with the researcher. But we've been playing, it's long-winded, I apologize, but I've been playing email tag and have not been able to meet with them yet. But they have a pitch they do to the Worcester City Council every year. So I was hoping that they might have some guidance, or suggestions rather, of what kind of criteria they look at that may be over and above some of these other metrics that were listed here. And I didn't mean to list these to limit them to this, but these are ones what we had in hand, what I was able to compile, but I think they at least help shape the thinking of the kind of things we should look at that the select board is looking for.
Which sheet was that? I might not have gotten to that one to read.
As it was in the memo to the board.
Oh, the one you wrote
Yeah.
to the board.
It's on page 2 in the middle.
Do we have the specifics of what the board has asked us to?
Right.
I don't have the verbiage in front of me, but I think it was something.
Oh, I think he's the
Um,
notes here. He gave us all notes.
I believe the charge, and I can look it up while we go around the circle. I believe the charge was for the EDC to recommend criteria that the select board can use during the annual tax classification discussion. I'm pretty sure that was the charge.
Okay.
Got it, okay.
So just, again, I'm still learning some Auburn history here, but as we can see, that the rate has steadily declined. There was back in the later 90s and into the early 2000s, there was a much greater split between the commercial and residential side. That was identified years ago. And so there has been some steady progress made as far as making the rates equal.
See, where I sit, I don't look at it as a formulaic thing. I think of it as a problem that relates to the way that we are settled as a town for all of the buildings and commercial and residential property that we have, what's vacant, what's not been developed. For example, we have this problem because back in the year 2000, we were all situated with our real estate and things were in check.
I'm so sorry to interrupt this meeting. I just have to ask you one question, and it's super imperative because the hearing is literally.
Okay, I'll excuse myself for a moment.
Sure.
Pardon me.
Absolutely. One quick second. I'm so sorry. Yeah.
This is the first time that's ever happened.
Yeah, I've never had someone pulled out of a meeting in all these years either.
I think he's wearing a lot of hats right now.
Seems that way.
I might humbly suggest a recess.
Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah, he's right
Oh.
back.
Apologies.
We were just going to have recess.
Sorry.
don't get that too often.
Luckily, it was a quick question.
So my, in watching it and going to some tax hearings and stuff and watching some of the verbiage that goes from one side to the other, I think one of the things that we face are challenges beyond the way that we are as a community and some of the decisions that we've made, how that financially impact the town and its budget. And for instance, the selectmen, as we're having this discussion, are already talking about other means of affecting the tax rate, which, if I can say as a board member, let us finish one thing before you start another. Like, there are multiple avenues, but one of the things that we're up against is we live in a community. That community is Massachusetts, and Massachusetts is always going up on valuations. So we could drop the tax rate all the way down to $1.10 for both and match it, and everybody's valuations can go through the roof because of the state we live in. So what good does it do us to impact our tax rate when there's multiple variables to the formula, and some which we have control over or some which we don't? So just before everybody expenses energy and everybody thinks about having this kind of a discussion, I think we have to go beyond that to understand not only these parameters that have been listed, but what are some of the external factors that impact our tax rate that we don't have control over as a community, which I wanted to that's my 2 cents at the beginning. I love to invest a lot of time and effort, and I'm on the finance committee and I know numbers, but it's not going to do you any good when you only control half the checkbook,
So my understanding of the question and the rates is tied to the idea that it's not about directly increasing or changing the amount that's levied, but to make its distribution proportionate to the population between residents and business. Is that correct?
Yes, they want to shift the tax factor.
So what happens once the rates are set in terms of the ups and downs of the tax rates and the money levies that are collected?
There's a burden that has to be cared for. So all it does is shift the burden. So if they have to raise a certain amount of money through taxation, when you go to do that shift, you're shifting part of the burden. But then there's an additional burden on top of that burden, because then you've still got to make up money for the gaps in the areas where you can't capture it in that shift.
So essentially what they want to do is just make one tax rate for your residential, commercial, and the industrial personal property. And like you said, to your point, it will shift, all of it will shift to the residential.
And is this based on a goal that the town manager has, that the board has, that is being presented by residents?
The previous select board, like years and years ago, that was their goal. They wanted to shift fully to one tax rate. And I think now there's new players in the select board.
Exactly right, yeah.
And so now they're like re-looking at it, and now they're trying to think or figure out, is this what we want, right? And so I think now they're asking our opinion, our guidance.
So for instance, the gentleman, to be full disclosure, the select person that brought this forward didn't run for re-election, got it passed, and then no longer was on the board. So they invoked the policy but never were around to implement it. And now what the selectmen are saying is we have this policy that's been sitting out there for a couple of years. We can see how complex and difficult it is to make that goal. Maybe we should be revisiting the whole tax process.
And I recall some prior meetings, and I don't have all the facts to back up the conversations, but I remember, Mary, we would talk about this, and the running theory is you bring it to a single rate, and somehow that unlocks economic development because it invites more business to town. They feel like they're not shouldering so much more of the tax. I mean, that was kind of the running theory behind it.
So like I would want to ask, because they have shifted it, so when they shifted it, did it bring in business? Because I believe that was their ultimate goal. They wanted to reduce their tax rate, make it one single tax rate. They thought if it was reduced, it would bring in more business. So I don't know if we would be able to research that, but like I know that they have shifted it in years. When they made those shifts, did it bring in economic development? Did it bring in new businesses?
That's,
And I'm not sure which years they shifted either.
right.
So I guess that would be good to note here.
And the taxes being levied are on property, correct? Real estate.
Real estate property, right? It's
And-
evaluation.
And then there's the tangible property tax as well
Right.
that companies will pay, who are maybe renters and pass through. But I
Right,
mean,
the personal property.
so-
Yes.
So then unless you're bringing in new commercial property development to go along with it, you're just going after the same.
So, and I think the mindset
Because you have
is,
empty offices filled, maybe
Right.
that aren't filled totally. I'm trying to figure out how that formula works if you're not building.
but
a lot
when you
more
have
property.
when you have it, then that's why I said the burden shifts. If you have less commercial property, you've still got to raise that money.
Right.
You're gonna,
Right.
the residents are gonna have to take it because you're gonna need the same value. And I think part of the mindset, or at least what I've heard when I hear people going before the select board when they comment, is that, and it's true, a resident, we have two sets of residents. We have employed residents and we have retired residents.
Sure.
Retired people don't get, we don't have them as a category. And the people that are working, they might get a cost of living that's so much, but a person who has a business, well, there's two, there's commercial and there's small business. And we know that small business could be very difficult for them if they get their taxes raised. So there seems to be, maybe in the past, and we'll go back 100 years ago because it makes the example really easy, but it was really easy to say that a person who owns a business should pay more high taxes than the 10 people that live in town. But now we're much larger than that. But I don't know, part of me thinks, why aren't there more categories?
Well, and that's where I think us providing more criteria to get more granular, and to your point, Mary, figuring out if there is any evidence to support, we've lowered it. We have brought this much closer together,
Right.
looking at the historical in recent years, and has that nudged the needle at all? And I remember there were examples of other towns that had brought it to one tax rate, and I think there was, again, unresearched by me, but I'm just saying what we talked about. I can't remember, I don't know why Shrewsbury's coming to mind, but somehow that it was this economic boon, and that we had somehow been passed over by businesses looking for property because our tax rate wasn't singular. And I don't
Right,
know,
yeah.
but I think that was the nature of
That's
some
how
of the
they
discussions.
pushed it
That's how
initially,
it was pushed.
yes, yeah.
I'm just, if I can talk out loud, Madam Chair, for a moment, I'm trying to think of ways we could potentially get at that. And again, I'm stopping short of volunteering at the moment. But we could certainly look, I'm trying to think, we have these numbers here of data that I have ready access, or relatively ready access to. I could backtrack business licenses to see what business licenses were issued during what year. This many this year, this many that year, this many that year. Perhaps maybe try to tie that to number of jobs even, but then also look at and tie that with building permits as well, for commercial building permits.
Okay.
That at least, I don't know what it might tell us. It might tell us nothing. I don't know.
Okay.
But if I'm thinking of a way to say, okay, this year, since pick a number, since 2010. Well, no, let's pick a higher number. Since 2016, we've gone down $4 on the residential side, and $8 on the commercial side. What does that mean? Did that lead to any demonstrable
Right.
difference? One difference, but is there anything we can correlate? It might just be a correlation more than a direct causation, but it might be useful to look at. And given that it's a limited universe of things, limited number of businesses, limited number of building permits over a decade, that might,
I can give you one benchmark just by looking at this. So in 2000, the tax rates were 19 and, I don't have my glasses on, they're in the car, but 19 and 24, and
It's
now
14,
in the
it's
year
actually 14, but whatever.
25, they're 14 and 16.
Yeah.
However, Auburn's budget into the millennium was $27 million. Going into the year
80,
2025, we're almost at 90 million. We were at the doorstep of 30, so we've grown 200%. In just 25 years of doing fiscal budgets, we've grown 200%, and I think new construction, I think the census was, or the tax bills that went out were around 6,250, and then 2025, they were 7,200. So we've only gotten 1,000 more tax bills in 25 years, but yet our budget has gone up $60 million, 200%.
And what was the increase in the valuation of
Right.
the properties?
Right,
Those tax rates
exactly.
too, talking about the
Right,
Massachusetts.
that's the one thing I don't have off the top of my head, but I know the valuations were much different back. But, you know, as you can see, all of that inflation and all of that value, our town, I mean, we're only 5 miles at our widest point.
Right.
So the taxpayers and the commercial properties, so it might even be prudent, Paul, to not only look at the current situation of new business, but just sort of reflect back at the millennium and see if you know at that point how many commercial or types of licenses existed then and what the so you have about, I don't know of the taxpayers how complex it would be to get commercial or, you know, the split in commercial tax bills, but that's just a piece of insight,
Sure.
you know.
What about information regarding either vacant or underutilized commercial property? To me, that would be important, because if you're talking about trying to attract business, you can fill empty properties with businesses that aren't in them, and you'll get some tax, you know, change, but very little, you know, not a whole lot, unless their valuations go up because now they're full. So, because I think that's part of the challenge of the community as a whole too, is that there's still a lot of unutilized space that aren't being offered for rental, aren't being maintained. You know, we don't have to cite examples, we all know. You know, and even personally, it took me, you know, 2 decades to figure out how to get my business to find a place that I could rent, you know, and
Yeah,
as an example, so.
If I could jump in on that, just because one of the things I'm doing with the town manager is I'm coming up with just a snapshot of what is currently open, available, and on the market. But to Mike's point, there's a lot of properties. I mean, we know some significant ones, but there's also other properties along Route 20. You don't know where property lines end and begin sometimes, just driving by. But there's a number of sites that are open, but nothing is happening, and so I'm inevitably gathering a listing of those too, so that, you know, at some point we can approach them about, you know, when someone talks to me, well, I had a business talk to me, it's like, I'm looking for 10 acres, I'm looking for this, I'm looking for this. And then I can at least go into the criteria and say, oh, okay, well, we got well, it's 8.5 acres, can you maybe do something with that? But at least to be able to have that snapshot so we can share that information. I don't know how to do that on like a, you know, historical basis.
Sure, but even just
you know,
a snapshot of now, because that's
yeah.
where you're working, and that has to be, I think, part of the criteria as
Yeah.
well to assess and understand.
Yeah, vacant properties, absolutely. So if I'm hearing the discussion, we're still in the early stages of this, obviously. But we'd like to see if we can gather some of this information we spoke about over a period of time, whether it be some permit information, for, you know, valuations, number of tax bills, things like that. There might be some level of reporting, all right, that internally, like the people might have had to present it. You know, maybe the treasurer or the assessors had to present something at a town meeting, or they have some internal reporting. I can at least see what's there, and I can, if I gather some raw data, I can begin to share that. And then we can discuss it in more depth at presumably the February meeting.
That'd be great.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
And if I recall from the last meeting, we were asked to provide some kind of criteria response by the end of February,
Right,
correct? So,
right.
yeah, so anything we can get in that area for the next meeting would potentially help us maybe get
So,
closer to that?
I guess as a starting point.
Well, I mean,
it's good.
they don't even, you're not gonna set your next tax rate until next November, like,
But even if it's just another recommendation, or, you know, this is what we've discussed and where we're at, we should probably
right.
own up to reporting something back to
So
them.
doing a benchmark of just saying we're working on it and this is what we've
Sure.
got so far.
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah, we could do that, but I
Maybe-
don't know why we would have to.
Yeah, in between, I know that was, I agree that was kind of the marching order that the committee
Sure.
got, but I can circle back with the town manager to get further guidance from the select board
Sure.
on, you know, what, you know, I can't imagine they're expecting a full-blown.
No, and I think we realize that.
Right, but I also agree, like, I think the intent was for them to have some discussion ahead of town meeting, but I don't want to speak for that, it wasn't my thing. So if I will, in between now and the next meeting, I'll do that in addition, that's easy, that's an email in the morning. But then I can, in addition, see if I can gather some of this other information. But I'll just ask if the committee, if you've had a chance to look at some of these existing criteria, are they, I mean, and they seem pretty they seem like reasonable data points, I guess. So I guess does the, if the committee has any input, you can hold your input, I suppose, for the next meeting, so it looks like we'll discuss it again. But these are what we have so far.
So do you want to just cite specifically which bullets you're referring to?
I'm sorry, I apologize. In the middle, beginning in the middle of page 2, I have 1, 2, 3, it looks like 7 or 8 bullet points
Okay.
that were suggested to us by one of the select board members.
Have it.
The criteria, there were the comparison, I guess, at least the stated comparison is central Mass versus Mass as a whole versus the nation as a whole. And
Well, so right now, central Mass's unemployment is greater than the state of Massachusetts, and the state of Massachusetts unemployment is greater than the national average. So, you know, we're on two fronts where we're not doing so great.
Right.
And we're still, you know, I know there's talk, if you've seen the selectmen's meetings, they are now talking about looking at budgets that are at 1% and 1.5% instead of the 2.5% that was mentioned at the December Finance Committee meeting. So there is some sense that, you know, is there going to be available revenues? And, you know, we're coming off the coattails of a couple of years ago into 2.5%. And while we're on it, because we talk about it, you know, somewhere along the line we came up with this excess levy. But we're not Wellesley, and we're not Dover, and we're not other communities that are so affluent and wealthy with CEOs and doctors and like, you know, we talk about Wallace Avenue, and we talk about, unfortunately, it's being spotted for 40B. But, you know, it would be a lot better to put up a development, and I don't mean that this should go up there, but you can put 3 homes up there for maybe possibly 1 or 1 million or 1.2 million and draw a decent tax off of that to support the town. Or you can put up, you know, and we'll make it smaller. Instead of 96 units, we'll just say 3 buildings at 36 units. And you could put that up there and buy the real estate and so forth. You could probably generate more taxes than you would, and more revenue for the town than you would by putting up 3 homes. But then what you've done is you've sort of flipped it now, because you put up those homes and there's children in them. You've now upped your expenses because you know, you've tried to meet with some revenue, but now you've really upped your expenses because you've got to accommodate all of these people in your school systems and the fire, you know what I'm saying, and police. So it's tough to manage growth. You know, nothing is just as simple as just growing. It's a huge
It
concept.
impacts your budget.
It impacts
yeah.
everything. So whether you put 3 homes at $1.2 million, and you can invite some doctors from UMass Medical who can afford some hefty taxes, and possibly we draw equal to 3 buildings that are, you know, it's hard. And I don't even know, maybe doctors aren't as well paid as I thought they used to be. Because primary care physicians aren't good to keep these days.
So to answer your question, I think the criteria all seems reasonable.
I would say that it's sort of an understatement here, but I would say a direct rate of statewide inflation. I think statewide inflation is more of a better number to utilize than unemployment.
And as a side note, right now, this data is out there, but I'm not suggesting any kind of report format at this point, or any, or, you know, because at some point this committee might make a recommendation that these are the
Right.
these are the
These are
good,
the things to
these are
look
the
at.
15 criteria we should look at.
Sure.
And ultimately, that'll be someone probably here at Town Hall would be tasked with compiling some of that information.
Since our master plan has mixed use in it, could you find out if there's a special tax for mixed use, since we're trying to consider that? I don't know how you would tax a,
There isn't.
there isn't a,
No, there wouldn't be.
well, you've got commercial on the bottom and possibly residential above it.
Well, I do the tax rate in Grafton.
Yeah.
There's no,
You have mixed use buildings?
we do, yes.
Right.
But like you only have 3 categories of,
Again, to my point,
But the valuation, though, might be, they may do different things in terms of valuation. Like a 3-story all residential building would be different than a
3-story mixed
3-story,
use.
yeah.
yes, the valuation may be
Right,
different.
but the rate, there's no.
But
you
the
know,
rates,
yeah.
okay.
I was gonna ask, does Grafton have a split or
Just
one rate?
Oh, but see, well, that's to our point, that's my point. We have a split rate. So how are we going to, maybe that's a question for the assessing department. If we put in our first mixed-use building and we've got commercial on the first floor and we've got 3 sets of condos above it, is that going to be, how are they going to impact that tax rate? How are they going to tax that property?
Right, is it commercial, is it residential?
Right,
How
yeah.
do they figure it out?
And that, because we have mixed use in our future
Well,
planning.
my hunch is, well, yeah, I don't have an answer for them, but my hunch is they'll take the square footage of the commercial, do their multipliers on that.
That's what
And then the
they're
square
doing.
footage of the residential, do their multipliers for that, and come up with something. But
And
they're not-
someone like common area fee and they all have to pay it?
Well, I don't know about the
It
structure of the
probably
ownership.
would break it down by their residential and their commercial and then their personal property.
And then bill each entity in its own?
But in terms of valuation, I think that's how it would be done, as far as they would
Huh.
just, they just break apart the square footage of the, residential versus commercial.
Okay.
I think before I conclude this conversation though, I do sort of like what is our role in this conversation, because we are the Economic Development Committee, and so not to like shirk the
Responsibility.
responsibility, but I think I would want to understand, and maybe we can discuss, what is our place in this conversation, because I don't think that we should be shouldering the entire responsibility of defining all of these criteria when we are not the committee that has access to certain, so I'm just wondering if we can provide the economic development lens, which is the purpose and
My
stated,
understanding is we got it passed to us because we're not influenced by it, because we're in our own board and we're not selectmen and we're not the people in the position that are going to have the power to discern how it all plays out. So I believe one of the reasons why we got it is because we're independent of the bodies that are all having to have an impact. The selectmen will make the decision, the assessors. So we were sort of picked because the tax rate affects economic development.
But
If I-
I think I would agree with that, but I also agree with the sentiment that I'm like, if this is a, if this is an economic development entity, why are we making commentary on residential?
Right,
Residential,
like
yeah,
where
right,
the
that's
influence
right.
on
Well, because our economic
retirees.
development affects
Yeah.
residential.
Right. No,
Yeah.
understood.
Yeah.
I'm just echoing, I'm agreeing with this sort of an, I don't say ambiguity, but there's a bit of a question mark there. But I think
Yeah.
my hunch is from the way this is headed, we're going to talk about this further in February, and we're probably going to have a motion to someone else to make up a memo to the select board after that meeting. And again, that could be part of the commentary, I suppose.
Yeah, I think broadly it would be, and this would be something I guess, Paul, I would ask to see if you could help us get some information, is looking at towns that in maybe the last decade have gone to a single rate and seeing if they have any sort of reporting that they could do, because certainly other towns have had this conversation, right? Like, we don't need to necessarily recreate the wheel, and it would just be interesting to maybe leverage some of their analysis, some of their findings, some of the results.
If we knew anybody like Grafton.
Yeah, some
Yeah,
of Grafton,
for
or
instance.
if Shrewsbury.
I
don't
think
know,
I want to say
that's-
Webster was
Yeah.
a recent
Webster
local
maybe,
example. I
yeah.
want to say Clinton,
Sure.
and I do have some contacts in those places, so
Yeah,
I can
Just
reach
to
out.
see, like, what were the factors they considered, and then what's been the result? You
Yeah,
know,
the
if
result.
that would just be really helpful, because I don't know, I'm just a big believer in not like having to drum up our own, where we can avoid it, and
It's
there-
interesting because where I sit, I think that independence is great. I don't think it's not right to go and look and see what other towns are doing, but I certainly don't want to follow the leader. I'd like to. be
No,
the
no, no. I'm not suggesting we follow them, but I think I certainly feel like I'm coming into this pretty cold. Like, I don't know, right? I'm just an average. I just pay my residential taxes, and they're a lot. But I understand what they go to, and I'm not a business owner, right? So I think it would just be interesting to learn a little bit about the processes that they went through, because that's what we're being asked for, is to create a process to develop these criteria. I'm not saying we necessarily take verbatim their findings and say that's the one we want to replicate, but I like to learn
Sure.
from other experiences, because I don't have experience with this topic. I don't know. So it would just be interesting to see, and maybe we'll find that the results were uneven, and that can also influence our thinking. But I'd be curious if we could get a little bit, just to, as a starting point, a reference point, because I feel sort of out of my league on this question.
for the communities I'm aware of, I'm happy to get that information, and I can provide it further in advance than I did with this last
Okay.
batch. But just a quick question about Grafton, if I could. How long has Grafton's rate been closed? It's been a
So
long time, right? Or-
I've only been there for 5
Yeah.
years, and it's always been
Yeah.
a single tax
Yeah,
rate.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
where other towns I was in Boylston, it was the same, it changed year to year, but
Right.
it was always a single tax rate, so, but like I said, there are examples in central Mass, that off the top of my head, there might be more, I have my contact with CMRPC, who I'm sure are very much aware of these as well. So I'm happy to do that on behalf of the committee, to find out what committees are done and do some initial outreach.
And also, what would be the full impact of the shift, right? Like, what would that look like for your average single-family home? So I believe, like, you know, all the assessors.
I think that would be difficult to
No,
discern because.
the assessors, they do it
I was
every
gonna say,
year in
yeah.
their tax. They do a tax rate classification to the select board, and they do put that information in their slides. I don't know.
Yeah, Paul, I was surprised that we didn't, did you not see the Auburn's one that they just did, the tax classification area? Did you not get access to that?
What do you need?
We just had the rate setting this last December.
Right, I included the video link in the memo.
Oh, the
Oh,
video
okay.
link, I didn't, oh,
All
okay.
right, yeah.
Okay, I have the handout, so I'll
Oh,
go back
okay.
and look at the handout.
Okay,
Yeah, I'll have to watch the.
yeah, okay.
Okay.
Do all of you have the handout?
I mean, if you have it
The memo?
electronically,
Okay.
feel free to circulate it.
Okay.
I wouldn't mind looking at it, although I can probably just go down the hall and get it.
So you're looking at a 2% gap right now
Oh,
between the two, is that right?
If we're looking at the numbers, I mean, assuming 2025, it's $1, $1.09, whatever, quick math, $2, yeah, call it $2.
Yeah, okay, so you're looking,
So let's say,
Per
so you
thousand.
increase, you
Per
increase a
thousand.
household on average by $600 a year if they're paying $6,000 a year, or, sorry, 1%, so it's $60 a year, right?
I mean, I suppose we could just do a quick, I mean, I could ask whoever would be assessing or treasurer, whoever's office, if, just.
Well, you have to add the valuation in there per thousand, so if someone's home.
If you did it today on today's
But
rates
in vacuum,
evaluations, in
if
a
we use the
vacuum.
2025 assessments
Sure.
and change the numbers to, be equal, so it'd be 15 something, I imagine, just to see what then the breakdown would be. If we can do that might be somewhat instructive, because will it be, would it be 500? Would it be 1,000? Again, you're doing some quick calculations already, but but yeah, I think that's probably something perhaps useful to look at, just to see what it actually means.
Right.
All right, so get ready for more attachments.
Thank you.
All right.
Right. So we will table that till next meeting, and the last item on the agenda were some updates, some economic development updates. Some grant opportunities for Grafton? I'm sorry, for
No,
Auburn?
No, not for Grafton.
Wrong town.
Let's take their grants. Oh, sorry. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, just a quick update, Madam Chair. Thank you. I think I talked about these at the last meeting, and so I just want to update the committee. I think I referenced a permitting guide, applying for technical assistance with CMRPC. We were successful in that application. And so we'll be starting work on that sometime in February. That's the schedule, the anticipated schedule right now. It may be that CMRPC attends a future meeting if the timing works out. Certainly, if not, I'll be in a position to update the committee as we go. But just to reiterate, the idea was to we have various development processes in place already. We have a couple little handouts we can do, but some communities have put together more robust guides that encompass not just building. It has a health department. It has, in Auburn, you have to go to the DPW for a land disturbance permit. So it's sort of, we have this and that, and I feel like we're starting to do a good job internally of trying to coordinate that. But wouldn't it be great if we had some graphics or some handouts we can give to people, post on our website, so on. So that's the idea with that. The second point, and again, I think I may have mentioned it somewhat at the last meeting, I was hopeful we would hear back by the meeting. We have not. But again, just to recapitulate, we had applied to Mass Development at their request to apply for a Urban Land Institute Technical Assistance program project. And the analysis would be of the former Yankee Drummer site on the south along Route 12 up to the mall site. And look at what, get experts from across the state in different disciplines, finance, architecture, planning, so on and so forth, would be able to come give us recommendations in an intensive one-day workshop. So if I get news, I will share it ahead of the next meeting, but hopefully it's a topic we can address further at the next meeting.
Do you mind if I just, sorry,
Oh, please,
just 'cause
questions,
the
yeah.
Yankee drummer was before my time.
I'm sorry,
Like, I'm just don't-
I'm also dating myself. I guess it's, nowadays they call it the Laneway site. It was a site of a proposed Lowe's. It's on Route 12.
okay. Yep.
If you're going south of Route 12 before you get to the Pike.
Across from the Shell.
Yes, that's right. So that's a 6+, whatever, how big a site it is. But it used to be an income.
Okay.
My sister-in-law got married there.
Okay.
No longer, that shows you how long she's
And
been
college
married.
friends who we had the receptions there.
I went to baseball coach. I was there.
Prom,
So,
too.
yeah. Anyway, but I'm sorry, Donnie.
No, yeah,
that's,
I just couldn't remember where that was.
That's that site. There's it's 6 something Southbridge Street,
Yep.
I think. Yeah. And the last piece that I mentioned it already, we've advertised the town planner position. Full disclosure, we haven't received any fully satisfactory applications just yet. So,
These positions are tough to fill.
yeah, it
Yeah.
is. And again, it's sort of, we're looking, there's been a number of planning director positions out there, but this would be more of a town planner position, which is probably slightly below a town, so depends where people are looking. I know the city of Worcester is looking for a chief planner right now. I know Millbury just, because the planner in Worcester went to Millbury. So there's a bit of musical chairs happening, so maybe that will shake something out.
Yeah.
And I know, and we're talking with the town manager too, perhaps we recalibrate the position and the posting to make it more enticing. So more to come on that. That's all I have, Madam Chair. Unless there's any questions.
Good luck on that.
Yeah.
Yes, we did have one other agenda item to accept minutes.
I have copies of minutes if people need them.
I'll take a copy,
Yeah, I'll take a copy.
especially if you made them, like, kill a tree.
Right.
Yeah, I did destroy some trees. I apologize to them. There it is.
I'll take up copies.
Might as well.
Sure.
I made enough for the board, the committee. And here you are. Might as well. We have it.
So I guess you need a motion to accept, right? We have to approve them. So I'll make a motion to accept them. I read them on the computer, but I didn't.
I'd second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Get those posted.
So we do have a meeting scheduled
Yes,
for...
I think we discussed the last meeting, February 12th,
Right.
at 6 o'clock in this room. Does that still, presumably still works for everybody? And it looks like the main, at least at this meeting, the main agenda item would be further discussion on the tax classification criteria. Unless there's anything else that I can work with the chair on that, but I think that's probably enough of a topic for the meeting ahead. Okay,
Sounds good.
excellent.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We adjourn to 7:02.
Good night, everybody.